Yeah. So when I first started my business, I kept being told that consulting is about feast or famine, and so I was very much wondering how I was going to make my mortgage payment. And fast forward 3 or 4 months, and I'm in a position where I'm considering hiring people and building a team.
Awesome. Hey, Jim, let's start with just a quick introduction, who you are, what you do, and tell me the story of what was going on in the business before we started working together.
Yeah, so I work with restaurant groups and restaurant owners and restaurateurs to try to help them learn to run the business side of things a little bit better. So we teach them to use data to make better decisions, drive productivity, and ultimately improve their profit margins. So um, that's kind of what we do from an offer perspective. Um, and sorry, your question was about what was going on in the business before we started speaking, right? To be honest, not a lot. I was brand new into consulting. I was in the where am I going to find someone who wants to hire me? Actually, a lot of will anyone even hire me was sort of the thought going through my mind. There was a lot of sort of self sabotage and that kind of thing happening. Even though I had over 20 years experience in the corporate side of the hospitality industry. Um, and I was definitely having a lot of conversations with other consultants that were telling me things like, it's feast or famine. You'll get a really good deal for a couple weeks or a couple months, and then you'll have no paycheck for a month or two. So that's kind of where I was at. I was sort of in that, how am I going to pay my mortgage type space at that point.
So I'm curious, when we started talking, what were you nervous about? What was causing hesitation to working with us?
Well, I had no experience in marketing. I had no experience in content creation. I had no experience in outreach, any of that kind of stuff. I'd been working in a big corporate environment that there were departments that did all of that stuff, and I did operations. And so, I was hesitant and skeptical about, any of this kind of stuff because I knew nothing about it. So, you kind of always ask, what work, or are they trying to take my money?
Yeah, and so I'm curious, like, was it that you were unsure whether you could execute on this stuff because you didn't have direct experience with it?
More than anything, yeah. Yeah.
How'd you
I
get over
just,
that?
well, I think fairly quickly, going through some of the modules and lessons and stuff, I guess there was sort of two things that happened. One is I actually started to see that some of it was, I was getting some interesting response from people, and starting to create some good connections and that kind of thing. And I also found myself, to be totally honest, and not to pump your tires too much, but I was trying to emulate it. I was actually trying to go, okay, how do I create this exact same type of thing for the industry that I operate in? So
I'm like the poster boy for anybody can do it. You look at some of my old stuff and it's like, well, he's not that articulate, and he's not that good looking, he's not that bright, and look at him, right? So happy to serve, my friend. Tell me this, Jim. We're now, I think we're just coming up on the tail end of your engagement with us, 90 days. What have been, if you could just kind of like delineate for us the big shifts that you experienced in our time together, what were they?
well, I think anybody can do it for sure, like you just said. I mean, if you apply yourself and do the work, I mean, it's possible, for sure, for anybody, even if you have no experience. I mean, people can learn that stuff. One big shift that I had was that I thought I was going to be spending all my time trying to connect with buyers and connect with people who had the problem that I thought I could fix. And the biggest shift that happened for me was that strategically partnering and connecting with the people who are connected to the people who have the problem that I fix has been the most powerful and most beneficial thing that I've sort of learned.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think with most clients, we're going to want to do both, right? We're going to want to go after the end users who have the problem that you solve, and we're going to want to go after the partnerships and the referrals with folks who have relationships with those folks. And then where we focus depends on where the traction is. So in your case, what I'm hearing is that there was just a ton of traction in that referral partnership space that led to deals and caused you to double down as a result.
Right. And I didn't even realize it was happening at first. I was actually frustrated by it and had a bit of a venting conversation with, I think, with Margie actually, where I was saying, I just keep connecting with people who are never going to buy anything from me. And then through some good discussion, realized that, wait a second, these people are connected to the people that I do want to be speaking to. And their referrals are more powerful than any outreach that I could ever send them.
So how'd you make that shift with those folks from, they're interested in you because you're smart and have smart things to say that are of concern to them. How did you make the shift from that type of relationship to, hey, why don't you bring me in on a deal?
Well, a lot of the conversation that I have and have had with those partner type people or organizations has been help me help you type thing. Let's try to connect together on how we can, because a lot of, my goal is to try to help the industry recover and improve and, make it better for the next generation of restaurateur. And a lot of them have similar goals, right? They run a podcast that's about how to run a restaurant better, and they're trying to help people who are listening. So, there's some common ground there. And so a lot of it hasn't actually been that formal. It's just been them, through good discussion, all of a sudden they say, I know somebody who needs your help. And I go, wait a second, I know someone who needs your help. So there's been some really good give and take that way. But like I said, that was actually frustrating to me until I realized the power of
it. And how much of that has to do with the strength of your proposition? Like, because you have a good proposition, which we don't need to get into now. Like if you went to something with something a little bit more vague and generic, oh, I'm a consultant for restaurants, do you think you would have gotten the same kind of traction you're getting with these folks?
No chance. No.
Oh.
I think the competition that I have in my business is general. And I don't say that as a negative to them or as a shot at them, because a lot of them do really, really well, but they offer everything. They'll help you with every part of your business. And where I've gained a lot of traction and actually even been told you have no competition. I've had a few people tell me there's no one competing with you, is because of how specific it is.
Yeah, brilliant. And that's where you want to be from a positioning perspective, right? Low supply, high demand. So tell me this, you were, initially starting out, you mentioned something about, worried about paying the mortgage. It's very typical, right? It's like you leave corporate, it's steady paycheck, and now you're a consultant. It's not guaranteed or predictable anymore. You're worried about paying the bills. Where are we now in the business?
Well, you never know what's going to happen next month. It's, that's still definitely where I'm at. And, cash flow obviously is king and is important, but, in May, so what I think we're middle of June right now, right? So May was the first month that I really set a more aggressive target. And, was even looking at my whiteboard in my office thinking every day, kind of like, I don't know if that's possible. And I surpassed the target by the 14th of May. And awesome. Without doing a single cold email outreach, really any cold calling, I haven't made one cold phone call. So the content and the positioning, and that's where it's all come from.
So tell me, I know you have a story about a deal that you're working on right now that's just about to cross the line, that was come purely through inbound, where you had no pre-existing relationship. Would you mind telling us that story briefly?
Yeah. So I believe that it's just come from positioning and content, and just making sure that people are aware of what I do. And I had a contact actually on LinkedIn that works in a different industry altogether, but for an organization that I'm now in discussion with. I work in hospitality. This person works in construction, but we were connected and they're working together. And it turns out that he actually ended up reaching out to me saying that their organization has this scenario going on and within hospitality, and basically we need you, is what he said. Took us to a discovery conversation that we ended up having with him and three of his team members that are more related to what I do. And the amazing thing, I thought I was going to go into that conversation with a bunch of pitches and saying, here's what I can do to solve the problems you have. And every time I asked them a question, their response was, well, we plan on deferring to you for that, or that's why we're talking to you. And so, definitely gave me some good confidence, and it was a good ego boost. But yeah, they're very much looking to me for the answer.
That's fantastic. Amazing story. And certainly excited for where you're going now with the business. I'm curious, any comments on the experience working with us, the coaching, the training, like just the overall experience? What did you find particularly useful?
I think that the combination of the work that's there that you can do on your own, combined with having some support of actual people to speak to that have kind of have experience in this, has been really positive. There's lots of times where working with one of the coaches where they just, I said, well, I'm not sure if that's possible, and they just said, well, why not? Have you tried? So there was some good encouragement and sort of challenging discussion. But I mean, if you're willing to go through it and actually put the work in, it works. I mean, it's changed dramatically my view on everything from what I offer to how I position myself to what the future looks like for my business.
And I'm curious, for someone who's about to go through it, what would be your kind of sage wisdom or advice to help people get the most out of the experience?
Well, I think you got to make it a priority that you actually spend the time, because there's lots of discussion that happens, kind of on the peripheral. There's the group chats and that kind of stuff that are all good, and but you got to actually do the work. You got to actually, especially for somebody like me who had no experience in content, no experience in marketing, no experience in outreach. You actually have to do the work and learn how to do it. And I'm by no means an expert yet, but the effort and whatnot, I mean, it's paying off for sure.
Yeah, it's not edutainment, right? You got to apply, learn and apply,
Yeah.
learn and apply.